All right, NFL fans, welcome back to another episode of For Your Viewing Pleasure. I am your host, Jeff Hartman, and joining me is Wesley Coleman. As always, we both are happy. Both our teams are 2-0. Congratulations on the Saints win. Wesley, what's going on?
Thank you. Yeah, not a lot of 2-0 teams. I think there's 9, correct? Or 8.
Less
So
than that, I think,
we're,
after
we're
the
pretty
after the Eagles lost last night on Monday Night Football when we're recording this. So I don't know. It's not as many as you would think. We'll put it that way.
for sure. And I don't know if either one of us thought that we would be two of the ones.
Well, I can't speak for you, but I mean, I looked at the Steelers slate of games and said, you got to win these 2 games.
Yep.
Even though they're on the road, you got to beat a rookie Bo Nix. You got to beat a Kirk Cousins coming off a ruptured Achilles, and you just got to find a way. But you all, man, we said it. That was the game of the week. And I got to be honest with you, in terms of competitiveness, it wasn't even that competitive.
Not at all.
So, all right, let's get to this week's game. In case this is your first time checking out the show, what we do is we break these slate of games down into potential categories: must-see television, the games that it's scheduled programming. You're going to make sure you're watching this game. We have games that really you would only watch in case for fantasy purposes, whether it's daily fantasy or traditional. We've got sneaky good matchups. You could only watch one, and then we'll always do our dud of the week, which is what we think is going to be the worst game of the week. So let's start off with must-see TV, man. I mean, let's talk about first the primetime slate just to get that out of the way. Patriots-Jets on Thursday Night Football. Sunday Night Football features the Chiefs and Falcons in Atlanta, and then Monday night, Jags and Bills.
You have 2 Monday night games. You also have the
right.
Commanders and Bengals as well.
Yeah. Okay. What is your must-see TV game or games of this week?
Well, are we just talking about the prime time first or just in general?
No, I just like to throw that out there in case people want to know what the primetime slate is. It could be, but it doesn't have to be.
Man, the Eagles really screwed up by losing last night in the last minute, because that was the game of the week. If the Eagles win that, it still can be maybe the game of the week.
I'd say it is.
It probably still is, because like the Eagles really won most of that game. I'm just trying to not be a homer real quick. I'm going to say the Texans and Vikings. And this is not a game that I think anybody would have thought about 2 weeks ago or even a week ago. But the Vikings, I know I've said that Jefferson was going to get his numbers because he's quarterback proof. But Sam Darnold hasn't been a bad quarterback.
No.
And what the Vikings are doing scheme-wise, offensively and defensively, looks really good. They're playing to the strengths of their players. And then Sam Darnold is playing at a high level, making Jordan Addison and Jordan Jefferson get their numbers. And the Texans maybe haven't looked as dominant as you would have thought against their first 2 opponents, how they should have been. They could be 0-2 with just a couple of different plays.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting game that, like, I don't think either team got to 2-0 the way we thought they would. And they look pretty different. I'm excited to see what's going to happen here.
So you bring up the games, like obviously the Eagles and Saints, the 2 very good teams early in the season. You bring up the Vikings game because 2-2-0 teams. I'm going to go in a different direction, but still have it must-see TV, because I think there's a lot of magnitude with this game, even though it's just a week 3, and that's Ravens at Cowboys.
100%. That was my other.
The Ravens are 0-2.
Somebody's got to win bad.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens especially, and now they've gone to Dallas and blown the doors off the Cowboys before. And the line right now is the Ravens actually spotting the Cowboys 1 on the road, which is kind of surprising. But then again, both of the teams laid an egg last week in a lot of different ways. But Baltimore losing to the Raiders at home in week 2, their home opener, was a shock. And so I think this is must-watch TV, because both of these teams need to right the ship. That definitely the Ravens, because the Ravens are 0-2, the Steelers are 2-0, and who knows what's going to happen by the end of the season. But you don't want to fall into this huge hole and have to dig your way out. I'm going to choose that one first.
Yeah, after if the Cowboys were to lose and go 1-2, besides the meltdown that the Dallas media would have and the national media too,
right?
The Cowboys have a route back to still win the division. If the Eagles lose this week, they're also 1-2. Washington, New York aren't going to, run away with it. So Dallas still has a route back. Ravens 0-3. I don't know if they have a route to winning the division after that. And I hate to say that after 3 weeks, but that's a hole to be in.
And if you watch the Ravens play, the offensive line is struggling. Derrick Henry is a non-factor. And their defense is really showing a lot of holes right now. And this is what happens. Like, this is what happens when you pay big money to just a select few players. You have to let some players go. A good friend of mine's a season ticket holder for the Ravens, and he predicted 9 wins this year. And I said, really, 9? He said, I say 9. And he's very honest about the team. He's not a homer. He said, they let way too much go on the offensive line. He said, I don't think they're going to be able to protect. I don't think they're going to be able to open up holes. This team's not going to be able to compete until they figure out the offensive line. And so
I
far,
guarantee some of those 9 was these first 3 games.
Yeah, exactly. That's
That's
the thing.
problem.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go with one more since you did 2. And I'm going to say that shockingly, Lions and Cardinals has a little bit of intrigue. Just like you said, the Eagles screwed it up by losing on Monday Night Football. The Cardinals winning and the Lions losing. Now, both these teams are 1-1. Now there's a little intrigue about this game. Now, should it be in the must-see TV? I don't know. Maybe it's a sneaky good matchup. Maybe that's where I should have had this in that category. But I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray, they could keep that connection going. Detroit with we'll say a bad loss to Tampa Bay last week. In turn, I know Dan Campbell put it on himself. You know, how many times the coach got to do that for screwing up the end of a game? But nonetheless, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, if the Cardinals win this game, the 49ers are struggling. They got some injuries, McCaffrey and Debo out.
Yep.
I'm not sure if I mean, the Seahawks Dolphins is just, it might be a mess. The Seahawks might be 3-0 after that. But if the Seahawks lose, the Cardinals are kind of controlling their own destiny and might look like the early favorite to win this division.
That's crazy.
If the 49ers keep struggling the way they are. I mean, it's hey, and I you've said, I'm not putting words in your mouth. You're not a Kyler Murray fan.
No, I'm not.
He's playing some above average football for a quarterback and making some plays. Now, I don't know if he can stay healthy through a season. I also think that some of those crazy plays will end up, he'll throw the ball to the other team. But right now, he's doing what you want from your starting quarterback. And I mean, he's playing like a top half of the league starting quarterback right now. So it's interesting with them.
All right, so let's go to the next category, fantasy lineup games. These are games, again, like I said at the top of the show, and it's maybe you're not intrigued by who wins or loses, but there's specific players that you think could be good matchups, players that you're keeping an eye on. I'll give you an example here just to throw something out there, like the Giants and Browns. You're like, okay, why would I want to watch Giants Browns? Like, that's not an intriguing game. Well, Malik Neighbors had a great game last week, and he had a touchdown over 100 yards receiving. That's a good fantasy player. If you have him on your team, you're going to want to keep tabs on that. Same with on the opposite side, you might have the Browns defense. You might have Amari Cooper. So what's the first fantasy lineup game for you?
Well, I got 2 different ones for 2 different reasons.
Okay.
One, the Eagles and Saints, the 2 running backs that are facing off are the 2 running backs that led the league in scoring in week 1 and 2. Saquon Barkley with his touchdowns in week 1, Alvin Kamara with his touchdowns in week 2. I don't know if they're both going to be able to get their numbers. Also, both offenses have kind of gone different ways each week, whether featuring or not featuring those running backs. So you got to be smart about where those offenses are going to get their points and if you're starting the right guy. On the other side, just for the completely opposite, the 49ers and Rams, you got to bench your people that you drafted from them because they're not playing. You're talking about a number of people drafted in the first and second round are either not playing in this game or shouldn't be started in this game because they just haven't had good seasons. You got starters on both sides and maybe even the 49ers defense that you need to bench because you just don't know what you're going to get from anybody in this. And this would have been like a fantasy matchup for the opposite reasons,
right?
Looking at the preseason slate. And it's maybe nobody you want to play.
Let's look at the list of players that won't be in the lineup. No Deebo Samuel, no Christian McCaffrey. He goes on injured reserve. Brandon Ayuk has been up and down. We'll put it that way. Not talking about that. Anyways, Puka Nacua, he's going to be out for weeks. Cooper Kupp left the game last week with, I think, an ankle injury. Who's Matthew Stafford going to throw the ball to?
I mean, you can't start either one of the quarterbacks in this with what they're working with and how they've been playing. This would have been like you'd had 7 people from this game playing and love to have them in your starting lineup 2 weeks ago, and now none of them are playing.
I'll be curious if A.J. Brown, the Eagles-Saints game, if he's back in the lineup.
He said he will not be playing After the game, the coach said, I wasn't aware of that. He said he'll be out multiple. AJ Brown, before the game last night, said that he would be out multiple weeks. After the game, their coach said, I wasn't aware of that.
That's hysterical. Philly's in midseason form. It's week 3.
Their coach has got is a problem.
Sirianni's on the hot seat for sure. He is on the hot seat for sure. I think what's interesting, I talked about this with Kevin Smith on the whip around, the NFL whip around this past week, how a lot of teams are running the ball a lot more, the Saints being one of them. Another team, if you want to pick up a running team, look at the Green Bay Packers. They are running the ball. They're not throwing the ball. They're running it in every which way. Malik Willis, I wouldn't pick him up as your quarterback. Josh Jacobs had a good game last week, though. That's a game, the Packers, no one thought they'd beat the Colts, yet they find a way to win. I'm not sure if that's going to be able to be duplicated against Tennessee. Tennessee's defense is the strength of their team right now. Will Levis not very good. But any other fantasy matchups that you like here, Wesley?
No, I'm not gonna force it. That's
good.
That's what I'm comfortable talking about.
All right, sneaky good matchups. A game that is on the raw. You're like, okay, I'm looking at this, and I think this could be a really good game, but no one's talking about it. What would fall into that category?
Muted. I mean, right now, I mean, you have to at least think that it's an important game and interesting. Is the Patriots Jets? I mean, they're both 1-1. This is a division. You start losing early, you could be in trouble later on. But both of these teams could be 2-0, could be 0-2. They're both right in the middle there, and I think the Patriots maybe have some renewed a little bit of belief because their defense looks really strong, and then the Jets. I mean, they were kind of a darling pick, and then they don't actually look that good. But
I'd say, yeah, I don't know. Go ahead. You done?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go with, got to go with my team. I think Chargers Steelers in Pittsburgh. Steelers home opener, 2-0 teams, two defenses playing really well. The Chargers are the only team that's allowed fewer points so far this season. I think they've allowed 13 to Pittsburgh, 16 total points allowed. And offenses that we're really not so sure about. The Chargers are going to run the ball. J.K. Dobbins has had a fantastic start to the season. I just found out this week, and here I am living in my little black and gold shell, that Greg Roman is the OC out there. He basically duplicated Baltimore's offense from 2 years ago out in LA. And that's why Gus Edwards is there. J.K. Dobbins is there. It's basically Baltimore West. So this is going to be a good matchup because if anyone knows the Greg Roman style of offense, it's Pittsburgh, who went against him so many times and obviously stymied Lamar Jackson on more than one occasion when he was there. I think this is a sneaky good matchup. A lot of people they're kind of crapping on the Steelers being 2-0. That's fine. We're used to it. But ultimately, 2-0 teams, I think this could be a good one.
Any interest in the very last game of the week featuring the last two LSU quarterbacks to win the Heisman? Jaden Daniels versus Joe Burrow. With the Bengals can't lose. And the Commanders, even though their defense ain't great, they haven't been an easy out. They've been competitive, at least were last week and won.
You could take everything we said about Baltimore and duplicate it with Cincinnati. If you fall to 0-3, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. And it's a situation where you just kind of watch the Bengals and how they lost that game in Kansas City last week. And it was like a self-implosion. Jamar Chase getting a penalty for using quote unquote abusive language towards an official. Man, what did he say? I don't know. It had to be so bad that it drew 15 and he wasn't giving up. It took Joe Burrow going over and dude, stop. That team is interesting to me. If the Commanders win this on primetime, that's a huge jump for that organization.
For sure. And, in the last couple of games we talked about, I mean, it's not unbelievable that you're talking about a 3-0 Steelers team and 0-3 Ravens and Bengals. Really, I mean, I know it's early in the year, but this is a division that we all thought would come down to a game between first and third place. And you're talking about if you have a 3-game lead that early, and I don't know.
It's going to be tough. It would take a lot. Now, I want to bring up one other game, and some might say this is the dud of the week, and that's fine. We can talk about it there. But, man, the Carolina Panthers have decided to bench Bryce Young. And Andy Dalton, who I didn't know was both still breathing or in the NFL anymore, is going to start against the Raiders.
Against Gardner Minshew. Dalton versus Minshew. What are we talking about? What is going on here?
If I stole your dud of the week, I apologize. No. But, man, what is going on? Like, what are your thoughts? I think they're pulling the plug on this guy after week 2. I don't know. It seems like malpractice to me.
So they still have to give away the 2025 second round pick to the Bears in this Bryce Young trade. He is, if they cut him this year, he's still 12.4 million in dead money. If they don't cut him, he's got up like 22.9 or something like that. I mean, this is you've buried your franchise with this one trade, and I don't see the benefit of giving up on him right now. I mean, is he going to go take the secondary snaps in practice and get better? And maybe you're just the only reason you bench him now, in my mind, is if they are already like, nope, he's never playing a game for us again. Whether I don't see the benefit of benching him now for Andy Dalton. Like, you're not coming back and winning this division. You're still an awful football team. Even if you had a good quarterback, you're a bad football team. I mean, I don't see the benefit, and they're just like, we're just not going to put any more tape out there. So hopefully somebody will trade us a 5th for him.
That's the thing. You have to wonder if they're going to try and move him. You know, I wonder if a team like, let's just throw out the Dolphins because of Tua's issues. Maybe someone like Mike McDaniel's like, hey, you got a raw deal in Carolina. We'll send you a late round draft pick. Come and start fresh here. Maybe. I don't know if that would work. I don't think Bryce Young is that type of quarterback, but still, I wanted to bring that up. All right, let's.
I didn't like him coming out of the draft. I was happy the Panthers drafted him, and he's been worse than I thought he would be.
Yeah, it hasn't been good. It has not been good. All right, let's go to the last category here before the dud of the week, and that is you could only watch one. So this can be your team if you truly do believe that is the best matchup to watch. If you were to say, look, you get one game, you can only watch one game. What game is it? What do you got?
I mean, it's the Eagles and the Saints. The Saints have been a national story after scoring 91 points in the first 2 games. You're talking about record territory. 95 is the most that's ever been scored. 93 was the 2011 Saints, one of the greatest offenses that's ever played. They scored 93. And this one scored 91. And this team has put in our backup quarterback in the middle of the 4th quarter in both weeks. There's definitely meat on the bone to have set a record. And we've caused both other teams to bench their starting quarterback. And then, I just think if this team goes 3-0, like, it becomes more in a story that's important to me. Like, they've jumped, even in the power rankings that came out Tuesday morning, huge jumps between 9 and 13 slots. Nobody expected this, even Saints fans. So if they're talking about 3-0 and beating the Cowboys and Eagles, 2 teams that were expected to be fighting for the NFC, crown, it becomes a big story. But it's also a big story on the other side with the Eagles if they're 1-2 after losses to the Falcons and Saints.
Yeah, that's the narratives are on both sides of this one. That's why I agree with you with this being a could only watch one setting. Can the Saints keep it going? Was their success early on more indicative of who they played, or is this going to be a juggernaut offense that no one saw coming? I don't even think you saw it coming.
Nobody saw it coming.
No one saw it coming. Meanwhile, the Eagles, I have said it now for almost a calendar year that I'm not a believer in the Philadelphia Eagles. After the way they finished last year, they can change coordinators all you want, but there are internal issues on that team, and losses like you suffered on Monday Night Football against Atlanta are only going to exacerbate those issues. They have not gone away. And so we'll see how they do on a short week, going on the road, down in the dome. This is going to be a good game for sure. If I had to pick another game that I had as you could only watch one, this is tough. I would probably lean towards Ravens Cowboys. We talked about that already. I'd probably go with what you said as a surprising, could only watch one, Texans Vikings, because again, Justin Jefferson, is he healthy? Did he get hurt last game?
Yeah. But it was he got kneed in the high up in the hip, but I think they're saying they think he'll be okay.
Because if he's in the lineup, then this could fall into that category. If he's not, maybe not, because he is a big part of that offense and how they do that. So, all right, what about the dud of the week? The game that you're like, this is the worst. What game is that for you?
I mean, I've got 2 different ways. One's kind of weird because there's a 2-0 team in it. But the Dolphins Seahawks, the Dolphins are probably going to start Skylar Thompson, and the Seahawks are going to start Geno Smith. And I don't know if anybody cares about either one of these teams. unless you like live in the city where they are based. Like this isn't going to be a fun game to watch. I don't think for anybody. I don't think it's going to be entertaining. The Seahawks are probably going to run the ball 45 times if Kenneth Walker comes back like he's supposed to. And of course, the Dolphins are going to run the ball. I don't know if they're going to throw more than 6 passes.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure this is going to be a really fun game. It's going to look like a the wind bowl game or the snow ice game, but without the weather.
I'm going to go with a game that a lot of people might be surprised that I pick as the dud of the week. Bears and Colts. Because number one, I already have Caleb Williams fatigue. All right. So I get sick of hearing about this guy. I don't think that his skill set at this stage in his career is going to equate in success. Look, you can pirouette your way around the backfield and try and chuck up a prayer at USC, and it might work in the Pac-12 when it still existed. In the NFL, it turns into interceptions. And so you've seen Caleb Williams make some really good plays and some not so great plays. That team is very inconsistent, and DJ Moore does not look very happy. Let's put it that way. Then you go to the other side of the ball and Anthony Richardson. And what you're seeing now with Anthony Richardson is the same quarterback from Florida who had a sub 50% completion percentage. And everyone's like, man, but he can throw the ball 100 yards. That's great. Can he complete little outs? Can he make plays to move the chains? As of right now, he looks like, and I hate to say this, people said it about Cam Newton, he looks like a glorified running back with a football in his hand. At least Lamar Jackson has the running capabilities, but does have the accuracy to deliver passes downfield. Anthony Richardson has not shown that. The Colts have gotten out the gate slow. They're 0-2. This game, I just think that could it be fireworks? Could it be a lot? You know, there are storylines there, but I wouldn't want to watch this game. So I'm going to have it my dud of the week.
Yeah, I'm feeling bad for Caleb Williams. I think he's a very talented quarterback, even as a rookie, and he's got his growing pains he's got to go through. But I'm worried about him being David Carr or Robert Griffin, a guy that just gets beat to hell his first year or two. This Bears offensive line is awful. Like, I mean, I don't know how they put this together. And you're right. DJ Moore looks pissed, and he actually looks kind of pissed at Caleb Williams. There's not a lot going on there as far as camaraderie and them working together. And Rome Odunze is, I'm sorry, I thought he was overdrafted. I thought he was in a system that got him open last year in college and did not belong in that top 5 receiver discussion. And the fact that he was up there as who's 1 or 2 between him and Malik Neighbors that really offended me. But he has not looked good.
Yeah, Chicago, they've already ruined one first-round quarterback in Justin Fields, who's now in Pittsburgh and trying to kind of be a reclamation project in the Steel City. But I look at, you look at Caleb Williams, he's going down the same path, man. Everyone said the same thing about Justin Fields as you just said about Caleb Williams. He's got a lot of talent, but man, that offensive line and man, that coaching staff and man, what are they doing? They are going down the same road. I hope that Bears fans are smart enough to see it.
I can't leave this segment without saying Giants Browns because again, who cares? Like that's not going to be a pretty football game.
No. I mean, I will watch just for my Deshaun Watson horrible pass fix that I get every week. But
the problem is he's playing the Giants. He might look like an MVP candidate.
So Daniel Jones, I don't know. Boy, that's bad. That is bad. All right, we won't go down that road. This has been a good show to give you a taste of what's to come for this week of Week 3 of the NFL. Wesley, tell us what's going on with the Dome Patrol podcast covering the New Orleans Saints, as well as where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, find us on @Dome Patrol PCast. You can find me at who.wesley13 on X. We do have a preview show coming up in the week against the Eagles, dealing with the show that covers the Eagles on FFSN, and we will bring you all your game previews and instant reactions to after the game as well. How about you, Jeff?
Absolutely. You can find all my Pittsburgh Steelers coverage at the Steel Curtain Network. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast by searching Steelers. Check us out on YouTube as well. And then also you can find me on social media at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT. That's it for your viewing pleasure as a wrap. Wesley, thank you very much for your time, man. We'll talk next week, previewing Week 4. Take it easy.
See you next week.